welcome to part 6 and our final part in our saxophone series. This episode we are going to talk about equipment, and this was a subject that I almost didn't cover when I wanted to make this series and when I was designing this series, because I don't want people to feel like they have to go out and buy a whole bunch of new stuff just to be a good saxophone player, because you don't. But you may have to spend a little bit of money depending on what you have and what you don't if you want to sort of take your playing to the next level. So the first thing that I want to address is just that you want to make sure that your instrument works really, really well, or if you're a band director, that the instruments in your school work really, really well, because there should be some pride in that. You know, especially if you're a student who owns his or her own saxophone, that's really special. And I work with a lot of students, and I come by and we find things that are not right about their saxophone, and they'll say, oh yeah, well, I don't think I can get that fixed right now. Or they'll say, yeah, I know that's not right, but I just haven't taken it in to get it fixed. And I understand that, and I totally understand that instrument repair is really expensive. But I do think you should take some pride in having an instrument that works really well and having something that is perfect. And something that works perfectly for you. And I think that's something really, really special. So that's the first thing, is make sure your instrument works really, really well, because if it doesn't, there's only so much you can do. The next thing I want to address, though, is mouthpieces. And as a beginning saxophone player, the mouthpiece that you play on can make a big difference. But I know in terms of like what band directors have to deal with and what I have to deal with, what mouthpiece people are playing on is sometimes on the low end of the list, and I totally get that. But what I have found looking at saxophones, especially when schools buy saxophones, and what the mouthpieces that companies put in their instruments, especially with saxophones, are usually kind of a weird mouthpiece. They're usually a mouthpiece that's not really small enough to give you a good concert band sound, and also not really big enough to give you a nice jazz band sound. And I think that companies are trying to give you a mouthpiece that you can kind of get away with in either. But the result is that beginning saxophones don't always sound like they should, and they don't always sound good right away because they're playing on this kind of weird fusion mouthpiece. And I think that's kind of a shame, because saxophones should sound good right away. There shouldn't be like you sound bad for a while and it sort of gets better. It should sound good immediately when you start playing. And if you have a nice small mouthpiece to start with, one that's going to sound really good in concert band, you're going to sound good right away. So my favorite mouthpiece to start people on right now is a Yamaha 5C, and mostly that's because the saxophones that my school is able to buy, those are the mouthpieces that come with it, and I think that's a great starting mouthpiece. Because it's small enough that we can get a good sound right away, we can put a nice soft reed on it, and people can be successful right away with no delay. And when you're starting on a bigger mouthpiece, or if you're in one of those weird hybrid mouthpieces that is kind of not good for either, it can be really hard to get a good sound right away unless you put a really soft reed on. And it's also just not going to give you a good quality of sound, because you need a lot more control the bigger the mouthpiece gets. So I always recommend people start on a nice small mouthpiece like a Yamaha 5C, so that you can get a good sound right away and you can have some control. All right, so having that is not a super expensive thing to do. It's nothing compared to the price of the instrument, is what I'm trying to say. So if you already have your own instrument and it came with a mouthpiece, take a look and see and think, maybe I could be doing better on a smaller mouthpiece. Or if you're a band director, it might be worth the investment to buy a couple of those small mouthpieces just for the first few months or for the first year until your saxophone players get into jazz band or get into something where they can handle a little bit of a different mouthpiece. But I really think that having an instrument that's in great repair and having a nice small mouthpiece to start is the key to being successful on the saxophone and sounding good right away and contributing to the band, and not having that kind of beginning band sound that some band directors get, where you kind of hear all the saxophones and also some of the other stuff sometimes. but you can get a really good concert band sound right away, and you don't have to worry about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for participating in the saxophone series with me, and I hope you were able to take something away from it for yourself or for your program. If you like these videos, check out my other series, but otherwise I hope to see you next time. Bye.